All right. Thanks a lot, Rick. And I'm delighted to have so many attendees for what is our first and what we hope of many pro-aging webinars. And just to, what our goal is to sort of transfer the energy that you have in our popular pro-aging meetings that we have in person every other month in a variety of locations. And one of the reasons that I'm the first speaker here is that I'm the guinea pig. I want to make sure that we get all the little details ironed out. And as you can imagine, in putting these together, there are a bunch of little details. So today I'm going to give you just a brief presentation that sort of shares some of the insight and perspective that I gained on probably what I refer to as one of the most life-changing projects that I've been involved with. And so this should be a lot of fun. And anytime I'm speaking throughout the presentation, shoot Rick an email with a question, and he can break in and we can address it there. My goal is to be cover all my material but be brief. I'd love to be able to knock this out in 15, 20 minutes, and then if it goes longer, it'll be because you guys have questions. First, I do want to just point out some really cool things that we've got going on with Sourcebook and pro-aging. We've got a brand new website that we have just relaunched, and but the big changes are going to start occurring over the next several months, so check back often. We've got some great advertising opportunities now that we didn't have before, so definitely contact me or one of your representatives if you're interested in that. Got an iPhone, iPad app that's available. You can get that in the App Store at pro-aging. And this technology using webinars is just, we've got a bunch of other neat things planned to help professionals connect and to just enhance the way that we're delivering services. And the last thing that I've got on here is a new service that we've just started offering to a few customers. We actually connect real-life users to your website to do an in-depth analysis of this. So we get the Guide Retirement Living readers to review your website based on what exactly it is that you want users to do when they land there. And it's phenomenal, the insight that you can gain on that. So contact me or someone at Sourcebook if you're interested in any of those things. So I love this image here. This is an ad campaign that Dove did in the UK, and it really sort of summarizes the way that I kind of feel about aging is that, you know, unfortunately in our culture, we do a lot to cover up wrinkles and to color our gray hair, and if we can move to a culture where we begin to celebrate this, it's going to make a lot of these challenges that we face in elder care disappear. We need to stop putting labels on things related to aging to make improvements. I also want to note here, this is part of one of our new sponsorship opportunities. Our first website partner is Medicare.gov and CMS, and I just want to thank them and sort of direct you to our website where you can tap into a lot of the resources that Medicare.gov is offering, and take a click on one of the many banner ads that you'll see throughout our site, and you know, it might be something that you think about for your business as well. Okay, so let's get moving on this presentation. First off, as you saw in the opening slide, I've been in this business for 21 years. I started Sourcebook after seeing my family experience my grandfather in a nursing home. And over the last 21 years, I've sort of, I've been to hundreds of senior communities and have sort of established this title of expert in senior housing. And one event that sort of led me down this new path was I was taking my kids to school, their first day of school a few years back, and they started asking me about my first days of school. And even though my kids are young, they still listen to me, but they were really listening to me about my my first days at school. And so I drop them off at the first day of school, and then I'm driving to my job where I'm regarded as an expert in senior housing, and it really dawned on me that it's sort of, this is not a very authentic position, is that I've never spent a night in a senior community. It's sort of like working in a restaurant and never eating a meal there. And this thought hung with me, and later that week I was at a senior living community, and we had a discussion, and it, prompted me to sort of ask the management, could I move in for a period of time? And the first thing that they brought up was, it's like, why would you want to do that? And basically I can sort of summarize why I wanted to do this for 3 areas, is to be more authentic. If I truly am helping people make these transitions, I should do my best to try to experience what those transitions feel like. The second is curiosity. For those of us in this business, let's face it, these are not, the stigma of moving to these communities is not very positive. And so, by doing something like this, maybe it could open my eyes to some of those reasons, and some of the reasons for that, and I could help providers eliminate these stigmas and issues. And that really piggybacks into the third reason, is that my goal is to really facilitate a new way of thinking, new ideas, and creativity. And I think by attempting to understand better what our elders are going through in these settings, it gives me tools to better be able to do that. So over the last 2 to 3 years, I've actually lived in 5 different communities, and you can see video and journals of all that at this website here, everyoneisaging.com. And I'll share with you some of the stories here in some of the next slides. As I began to make these moves, I documented everything at this Everyone is Aging website, and it was fantastic. So the first move that I made was to an assisted living in Alexandria, Virginia, and I started writing about what I was doing to prepare for that move, and the feelings that I was going through. Going through the admissions process the same way any resident would be. And what was great about doing this on a blog is that people could make comments. And the positive comments probably outweighed the negative comments by, 2 to 1. But what I found was I really liked getting criticism and being challenged on what I was doing. And so it pushed me to think deeper about this and look through a different lens. And so the 3 of the probably primary comments I'll talk about here briefly. The first is you can leave. It's like, hey, Steve, this is great that you're moving into this place, but you're only staying a week and you can leave. People who move into these settings can't leave. Now, I obviously lecture about this quite a bit, but I was at the Pioneer Network a couple of years ago, and one of the persons in the audience interrupted me when I said this, and they said, what does this say about our business? She goes, because she said, I know that's the way people feel, is that when they move into our settings, they can't leave. They've sold their homes, they move into these settings, and they can't leave. And it really opened all of our eyes to how even people do have a choice. People can leave, but there's a perception out there that this is the last move that you're going to make. You sold your home, and there's not another option. Whereas a 20-year-old who is leasing an apartment knows And when his lease is up, he can move to another home. And that's something that, you know, we need to combat. But what I would say is if you're sort of challenging me on my project is, yeah, I can leave, but it's better than what I was doing before, which was just pretending to think I knew what it was like to live in a setting like this. The second is that you're healthy, Steve. You know, you're 43 years old, you're active, and you're healthy. And this is a challenge that I don't dispute. My issue is we need more healthy people sort of living in these settings. These should be homes for people, not homes for people over a certain age, not homes for people with disabilities. This should be these settings should be a place where an active 43-year-old feels comfortable and could call it home. And if we can do that, then we've truly created a wonderful home for our elders. And then the last one, I love to have fun on this one, is you don't have to give up a lifetime of possessions. And that is true. I mean, moving for a week, I'm not going to really jump into the immersion basket. But what I did in a few of the moves, but mainly on the first one, is I made a list of everything in my house. And then I took my, yeah. Hello?
You were fine, Steve. There was just a hiccup in the audio portion. You can continue.
Okay, okay, great. So I made a list of everything in my house. I've got a 4-bedroom suburban house with a 2-car garage, and so the list was long and lengthy. This was a long process. And then I took my 1.5-bedroom floor plan that I was going to be moving into, and I said, what am I going to take? Well, it turned out that it was about 13 items of furniture. Okay, now the cool thing is these are 13 items that me and my family use on a daily basis. And you can watch a video on everyoneisaging.com that goes through my house, and I go through room by room, and I show you what I would take if I was making this move. But the fun part was when I got to the kitchen, I knew what I was going to say. I was going to say, of course I'm going to take my coffee pot, but I said, of course I'm going to take my crock pot. And I went ahead and I put that up there, and you'll see a lot of comments on the blog saying, you know, Steve, you don't need a crock pot in a retirement community. People are going to cook for you, or, you know, you can get a one-person crock pot or what have you. What this little mistake made me realize is how much that crock pot makes my house a home. Not because it's practical, it's because the memories associated with how great my house smells when we use this crock pot. And this really opened my eyes up to how sensitive we have to be and how we need to celebrate these impractical possessions and celebrate our possessions when we're making a transition. And this is why, I don't care what retirement community in the country it is, you're going to see 14-foot armoires crammed into an 8-foot space with a bunch of socks in the drawer. It's because of the memories associated with that. And what I tell my readers is you can basically, there is a solution. You can document the home through scrapbooks, through video, and things of that nature. So by being challenged here, it really helped me better understand these transitions. Let me move to really what I learned, and through this I'll tell a few more stories, but as you can imagine, I could probably talk for hours on this, and I want to just sort of touch the salient points here. But so the first thing is, and remember, I've been doing this for 21 years. I've been to 500 of these communities. But one of the things that I never observed and I never really saw in the advertisements or the promotion of my clients is just how much the neighbors care for each other in these communities. And I've seen this at every one I've been to, and now I see it much more clear when I go and visit. And what I mean by that is that if, while all communities have excellent staff, if I have a mobility issue, or if I can't bend down and I drop a tissue when I'm walking down the hallway, it's not a licensed nurse that runs around the corner and picks it up for me. It's my neighbor that comes and picks that up for me. And the spirit of neighbors helping each other in these neighborhoods, and I stopped calling it a senior living community when I was there after a couple of days and said, this is a neighborhood. I'm just living in a different neighborhood that's different than the one that I'm used to. And every time I've moved back home after these moves, I've really felt kind of lonely because there's this spirit of camaraderie and caring about each other, and that even goes for the ladies that bicker at each other in the dining room. I actually feel care about each other more than me and my neighbors do on an idyllic suburban street. And again, I gave a presentation a few years ago about this, and a gentleman commented and said that what he thinks it is that it's when you put a bunch of people in a boat that they don't necessarily want to be in, they actually come together in a bigger and better way. And he sort of cited, he is Jewish, and he cited that he's always lived in Montgomery County, which is has a large Jewish population. He got transferred to his job down to Norfolk, Virginia, where there's not much of a Jewish community, but the 40 families in his community that came together, he felt came together in a much more powerful way than they come together in the community he lives in now. And so I thought that was really interesting. And the comments that you get from residents are just that. It's sort of like, I didn't want to make this move. I delayed it, but I delayed it too long. I wish I'd made it sooner. And the next sort of big picture observation that I observe is that these communities are too segregated. And, all communities have intergenerational programming, but there's a difference between having kids visit a community or, generations visit a community and actually being part of the community and living within the walls. And the first valuable experience that I went through was on my first day, where I was in a trivia. I went down and I was playing trivia. And it was these, 5 ladies named Mary that probably played trivia every Tuesday. And the questions started flying, and they would rattle them off. And it was clear, this was sort of this, it was a very meaningful exercise. These ladies really liked each other, and they liked playing this game. But they knew, if it was a World War I question, everybody knew which Mary was going to answer that. And I probably interrupted the game 6 times because, they would answer the question very quickly, throw in a little personal tidbit, and those personal tidbits are what caused me to sort of want to ask more questions. Well, what happened was that trivia game to them was an activity. To me, it was a classroom. And quite honestly, it was a lot better classroom than I've ever been in. What was exciting is that over my stay there, 2 of the ladies gave me books on topics that I had questions about. And it really, one of the things that I say is that I could drop my 2 kids in any retirement community in the country, and they'd probably come out more well-educated than the most elite private school. And the reason is, it's a non-traditional way to learn, and you're learning from true living history. And the residents want purposeful activities. I think that is one of the things that we need to really focus more on is activities with purpose in our senior living settings. So one of the things that has become very clear to me is that there's this American dream of suburban living that can be challenging, not just as we grow older, but it can be challenging if you don't have one of these things here, an automobile. And when you look at our elders that are in senior living communities, such a high percentage are making the move because their car or their transportation is what connects them to their purpose. And it's something to just think about, and think about more urban settings and how can I live in a more walkable environment. And I can tell you a little bit about my second move, which was to an urban retirement community, and I brought my 6-year-old son along with me because I really wanted to explore both the walkable setting and the age-segregated setting. I think that the village movement that is out there where neighbors are coming together, sort of creating the camaraderie that I've seen in these senior living communities is very important. And one of the things that I sort of use to illustrate that is that these are right here, these are the traditional tools that all suburban dwellers have. And, you know, on my street, every single one of my neighbors has a lawnmower, but we've never simultaneously mowed the lawn. We need to sort of begin to move our culture from one of independence, where independence is what's valued, taking care of my own self, and where interdependence is not viewed as a weakness, but it's something that we do that brings us together for a better living environment. Okay, you know, I talked a little bit about age segregation, but it's something that I don't think we're really aware of. I think we think it's normal to segregate by age in our culture, the same way that, let's say, back in the 1940s, that a sign like this is viewed as normal. And I tell people, you know, look back a short period of history and look at civil rights and look at women's rights and how we viewed, you know, people as being so different depending on their race or their gender. And just now when you go through your job, think about the way that we're segregating by age, and we don't even realize how bizarre it is. So when I talk about this, people get confused because they're like, well, you know, they look at our current system and they say, well, yeah, I hear what you say, but how are we going to do this? You know, I mean, how can you have a community that takes care of elders and disabled and families live there too? You know, and it's not as extreme as what the first step is not as extreme as what you may think. And this story here of Josh Viola is what really illustrates this in a very positive and exciting manner. And basically, just to get through real quick, minor league baseball teams, minor league baseball players are hosted by host families like exchange students. And so there was this woman, Cindy Novak, up in Ohio, who had some little leaguers, and she wanted to host a player. Well, the requirements were that you would have to have your own separate bathroom and bedroom. And Cindy didn't have that, but her family owned a chain of assisted living and nursing homes, and so she applied to have an assisted living be a host family to a player. And it got approved. So the gentleman that you see here, the player that you see here, is Josh Viola. So he gets sent down from the majors to a minor league team, and he gets his letter that he's going to be living in an old folks' home. So you can imagine he was the butt of a lot of locker room jokes, I'm sure. But the exciting thing is that when Josh showed up, they decorated the community for him. The residents went to all of his games. He actually had a better apartment than his friends that were being hosted in Little Leaguers' homes. And just one different resident breaking the segregation barrier completely transformed this community to a place where, you know, oh, the poor old people live there, to now this place where a professional athlete lives there with a bunch of elders. And it's, you know, I would love to see, you know, a community host a family when a soldier, let's say the father or mother, was in Iraq. in Detroit, they just had a hotel be converted into half of a hotel, half of a senior living community. So now you could have business travelers blending in and changing this, transforming this from an age-segregated community to a community where lots of different people live, and people can tap in to the elders' wisdom and give the elders purposeful activities and meaning. So what I love to talk about is, how can we stretch for new ideas and perspectives? And I know I've given you a bunch of my ideas, but a lot of this is just really starting to look at what we're doing in a different way. And, and don't be afraid to sort of challenge the system. The more people that begin to try things that are outside the box, the easier it's going to become, for all of us. And let's see. Let me see if I got another slide. Yeah, so, I mean, basically when I'm, doing this type of brainstorming, I break down, my segments into, solutions for providers, for families, and for the elders, and ways that we can kind of, reconnect with all of them. And, I'll talk about actually something that I'm pretty excited about. I wrote about it on my blog the other day, and it's sort of thinking about, I like to start with things that are stereotypical aging-related products or services. So one of the big challenges that my customers are always complaining about is that when new prospects are interested in this community, they walk into the lobby and they see a bunch of people with walkers, and they feel that, if they're not using one, they're sort of like, oh, geez, I might have to use that one day. And so the stigma associated around a walker, we can agree, is probably a somewhat of a negative one, even though it's a great medical equipment and it saves lives every day. Well, the funny thing is that the other day I was driving down the street and I saw a woman pushing her grandchild in a stroller, and then I turned into the assisted living community and I saw a bunch of people with walkers. And so it's really been fun to sort of brainstorm, is there a way that we can repurpose a stroller, change the design of a stroller so that it can be more supportive and more functional and have a dual function. And it's been good discussion on the blog, but it's one of those things, you start talking about it that way, and this is where the great ideas come to light. Which it also sort of stems from universal design. Let's design our homes so that they can accommodate everyone, and when we do that, we actually create better homes for all of us. This is our first webinar, and we really want to get your feedback. Is doing something like this, does it enhance your pro-aging experience? Different topics that you might be interested in, and speakers and things of that nature. Our goal is to sort of be able to offer these webinars to enhance or support the in-person meetings that we are doing with pro-aging, because we know it's challenging for folks to get out of their office for several hours to go to a meeting. So we'll send you a survey link, but feel free to email me or call me and brainstorm new ideas on that. And let's see, I guess I went a little bit longer than I wanted to, but here's all my contact info and websites and things of that nature. I look forward to hearing from you all, and I guess if you've got any questions, Rick can filter them over to me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve. And we have a few questions that have come in, but while I ask these, if you have any particular questions, just type them into the chat window in your lower right corner. Steve, first question we had was from Laura. She asked about the Dove ad campaign, and she thinks that you said that it is running in the United Kingdom, and she wanted to know if that was because they have a better, in quotation marks, a better attitude toward aging compared to here in the U.S.
It might be. You know, even though I'm in the advertising business, I'm not real clear on how and why certain campaigns run in other countries. I don't think it's currently running anywhere, which is, you know, unfortunate. But if you type into Google wrinkled, wonderful, gray, gorgeous, you can get the images from this campaign, and it's really very beautiful, and it's really what we need to we need more messages like that. You know, because you sort of brought up the UK, I'll share with you what I think is a great idea, and it's actually something that we're working on in our community of Reston that's being done in Asia and Europe, and that is elder playgrounds. If you Google pensioner playgrounds, what you'll see is they're basically almost like outdoor fitness centers, and they're for people of all ages, but they're specifically been designed so that, you know, folks in a wheelchair, folks with mobility issues could get a workout, and they're outdoors, and in many times they're next to or nearby children's playgrounds. And it's hard for me to describe this verbally here. I think the most powerful thing is the some of the YouTube videos that exist out there that will show you how these are being received in overseas. But it's actually something that we're working on in my community of Reston, Virginia. And,
that's neat. Yeah. I'd like to see those videos. Maybe that's a good topic for your next webinar. I had another question, actually a comment followed by a question from Nick. I'll try to paraphrase it. It was about learning from elders in the senior living communities, and he says that kids study World War II in their books, but there are thousands of men and women who lived through that, and they're sitting right now in senior living communities watching television and would probably love to share their experience. The question is, do you know of any examples where senior living communities have partnered with school systems to provide this sort of, I guess, a field trip type of share your education experience?
Yeah, you know, I know that it's being done in little bits and pieces in a lot of different places, but it's not being done on a large scale. And this is what we've got to change: is that it does make such sense. It's sort of like, why are we hiding this living history away behind these walls that, in general, communities are afraid to go to these places, you know? And yeah, it's another thing that we've sort of realized in Reston through some community initiatives is that we need to start making these homes, which they are homes, part of the neighborhood that surrounds them. So, I mean, you know, what's interesting is that over the years I've interviewed many families where the grandchildren will go do their homework at the retirement community because it's a quiet place. And but what they get when they're there, the funny thing was, it's not only the residents. So, for example, right now in our senior living communities, most of the I would say that most of the workers are English as their second language. So there's one high school kid would do his homework at Grandpa's retirement community to be close to Grandpa and what have you. And he was not only engaging with the elders, but he was being able to practice the Spanish homework with the staff of the community. And so there's just so many creative ways that we can do this. And, you know, it's not exactly easy. And what I mean by that is that you know, we've got to a point where things are, you know, security issues both in schools and in senior living communities it can be challenging. And for example, I did something with my kids' school where the kids engaged in a drum circle with the elders of retirement community. And what the management had told me was this was a Montessori school, so we didn't have sort of the county paperwork we needed to fill out. But what they said was that a big roadblock is the amount of paperwork that was necessary for the residents to fill out to volunteer at the schools, and vice versa for the students. But we just got to keep on pushing the envelope. You know, because we were talking about video, I loaded up a video here that I love that I'd like to share with everyone. And this is my son before he went with me to a retirement community. And it's just 2 minutes, so let me turn this on. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And Rick, you can tell me if
Yep, that sounds fine.
Here. Okay. Hey, what do you think of going to live in a retirement community with Daddy? Do you know what a retirement community is? Yeah, so anyways, I like to share that video, and not just because it's my kids, but I really think one of the valuable things is in having Asa with me during one of those moves was getting to see our world that we think is normal through the eyes of a 6-year-old. And, you know, when you hear a 6-year-old say that, hey, the reason we're here is to show that old and young people can live together, isn't that bizarre? I mean, you know, it's funny. So, anyways.
Yeah, no, and those kids are just really cute, Steve. I'll be the first to say that. I have probably just time for one more question. And I'll have to paraphrase this one because it was fairly long. It was in regards to age segregation in the senior living communities. Scott wants to know if you know of any examples of a senior living community that actually market or advertise to younger people, foreign exchange students, college students, people like that, and actually offer a competitive value to these people compared to but the traditional apartments are that the younger people would look at living.
Yeah, I think there's not really many people out there doing it intentionally. I mean, I think there's traditional apartment buildings that might realize that they're ideal for empty nesters, and they begin sort of moving in that direction. I think one of the best examples that sort of speaks to this is that it's an interesting property that's in Gainesville, Virginia, and it's called the Market Heritage Hunt. And this was an age-segregated retirement community for, it was an upscale apartment rental community. And because they had some changing in finances and their, I believe they may have even gone into foreclosure, they had to reapply, and it dropped the age restriction. And and if you type in my blog somewhere, I'm sure you can find some of the articles on this property. But it's really funny because when they first made this change, I called the manager. I was all excited about it, and I was sort of, talking to them, and they're like, well, I really don't think that families are going to even want to live here just because we're not age restricted. I just can't see it happening. And what's so funny is that now when you go to their website, you can actually see, they've got this group of kids that get together, and, they celebrating their first day of school and things of that nature. When you get right down to it, it's probably a better place for kids to live and for elders to live than a traditional neighborhood. I mean, I can't think of a better environment for my kids, which would be around a bunch of elders and mentors like that. So I think there are examples out there, and I wish I could sort of rattle off a bunch of those. I'll share with you another really good one, though, because it just comes to mind. And there's a property. It's a converted Air Force base in the Midwest. And what they've done is they've basically taken seniors. They've made it a place where a certain amount of the homes are devoted to elders, and it might even be income qualified. And then the rest of the homes are to families that have foster children. And again, just think about the wonderful connection that you're making here and the similarities that a foster child has to an elder that may be living alone or recently widowed or not, or doesn't have family at all. And the value that retirees and seniors can offer for after-school programs to foster families, and not only helping the children, but also helping these, very heroic families that adopt foster children. So there's a bunch of creative ideas out there, and on the Everyone is Aging blog, I try to really, throw those up there as often as I find them.
Okay, thanks, Steve. If you could put back up your last webinar slide that had your contact information, I think we'll wrap this up now and just let everyone know that, again, this is going to be approximately a monthly webinar series is the intention, and you can come back to the Pro-Aging website. Steve, did you have any parting comments before we sign off?
No, I mean, we'll try to send out a survey to everybody who attended. We really want your feedback on this and anything that we're doing. And, I thank everyone for tuning in. I'm really pleased at the turnout for our first official webinar.